Thanks for staying with us. The top executive for Fontainebleau Resorts is stepping down. Glenn Schaefer is leaving the company. He co-founded in 2005. The company owns the Fontainebleau Resort on the north end of the Strip. His departure comes at a turbulent time for that resort. Fontainebleau's developers last month sued 10 lenders for failing to provide nearly $800 million in construction financing, which the company said had been agreed to. The lawsuit claims the move was unwarranted. The resort's financial uncertainty forced hundreds of layoffs in recent weeks. Harrah's Entertainment is selling $1 billion in a private offering. Harrah's intends to use the revenue to pay old debt. Harrah's has about $24 billion in long-term debt, and it's struggled since it took on $12.5 billion in debt when it went private last year. Jeff?
Dana, thank you. The Nevada Gaming Commission is considering an amendment that would allow institutional investors to boost their stake in Nevada gaming companies. Current law allows institutional investors to hold up to 15% of a gaming company's voting shares. This proposal would increase that to 25% of the voting securities without the need to be licensed individually by the state. The proposal was put forward by longtime Las Vegas gaming attorney Frank Schreck. Schreck says this would allow greater investment, which is especially important, he says, during a very bad economy. Here right now to talk about all of this is Nevada Gaming Control Board member Mark Lipparelli. Mr. Lipparelli, welcome. Thanks for coming on our program. What do you think about this proposal?
Well, Jeff, the capital is the lifeblood of the industry. It's become the lifeblood of the industry. And this regulation was created well over 10 years ago, and it's been very helpful to the industry in their growth and their expansion.
To 15%, right.
Right. It has been important to the growth of the industry, and it provides much-needed capital to an industry that has seen tremendous growth in the past 10 years.
Any worries, though, if you boost the stake that these institutional investors can have? Any worries that basically could be giving them too much influence in a gaming company?
Well, at the core of the regulatory control is an evaluation of control and management, and this process is actually an application for a waiver. It is not something that is automatically granted. So the board staff has been reviewing these kinds of applications for a good long time, and they're very capable in this regard to evaluate the kinds of people that are asking for these kinds of waivers and the nature of the waiver and the request itself. So this is not something that's automatically granted. It is an application itself that has to be reviewed by our staff.
I know that one of the elements of Mr. Schreck's proposal would be boost the stake, and also they would not have to go through the licensing process. Isn't there a danger, though, that if you don't go through the licensing process and you give somebody a bigger stake, that you may not be weeding out potential problems?
Well, again, this is not an avoidance of the licensing process. This is a formal request that has to be made by the parties who wish to increase their stake. And in doing so, the staff and the board itself actually does an analysis of the kinds of people. We actually look fairly deeply into the ownership of the entity that's seeking the waiver.
So they would not be able to skirt essentially some sort of examination under this?
Absolutely not. To the extent that an entity has a history of trying to exercise control, we would look at those things in consideration of granting the waiver. So again, it's not an automatic.
Sure. Do you have any concerns that this would allow a greater concentration of ownership?
Again, in each case, in each application that's filed, we would do an analysis of those kinds of
issues,
questions.
Okay. Your budget's been cut at Gaming Control. Is that preventing you from doing the kind of licensing, the background checks that you need to do now?
We have not compromised the methodology that we utilize in terms of applications. The one downside could be that with a reduced staff, time through the agency could take longer, but our review process is the same for each and every applicant. So despite the fact that we will deal with a shortened budget, we don't compromise the level and depth of the reviews that we do on our applicants.
And give me the timetable in terms of consideration of the Schreck proposal. Where is that in the pipeline right now?
We entertained the proposal at our last monthly meeting, and we have our staff conducting their own analysis of the proposal now. It would probably, I would guess, take between 60 and 90 days before it would actually make its way before the board and ultimately the commission for consideration.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Eddie, that's it. Mr. Lipparelli, I wanted to say thank you for coming on our program.
Thank you.
All right, Dana, back to you.
Thanks, Jeff. Passenger traffic at McCarran International Airport fell for the fourth time this year. 3.6 million people traveled through the airport in April. That's down 5.6% from 2008. Year-to-date, passenger traffic is down 12% from last year's pace. All but one of McCarran's 5 busiest carriers saw passenger traffic decline in April. And the city of Las Vegas scores a legal victory. The Nevada Supreme Court sides with the city against the Culinary Union. And a downtown project is on ice until the economy warms up. We'll have details. Don't go away.